Which bank you apply to matters more than the score in your report. Most people don't know that this game exists. I'm going to show you exactly why. So banks have preferred relationship with specific credit bureaus. Some pull Experian only, some pull TransUnion, some pull all three. If you have one bureau that's clean and another that has a late payment on it, and you apply to a bank that pulls from that damaged bureau, the algorithm flags it before a human reviews anything. It's an automatic denial. So same file, different bank, different bureau, completely different result. And here's what that looks like in practice. I process applications every week where the operator has a 750 on Experian and a 680 on TransUnion because of one late payment from 3 years ago. So they applied to Bank of America thinking their credit is solid, but Bank of America pulls from TransUnion. So the algorithm sees the 650 and the late payment, denied before the underwriting even looks at revenue, business structure, or anything else. Meanwhile, Chase pulls from Experian for that same profile, clean 720, no negative marks, application approved. So same person, same day, different bank, but one approval and one denial. If you're getting denied and you don't know why, this is almost always the reason. You're applying to banks that pull from the wrong bureau for your file. Not knowing which bureau to match is critical, but there's one specific bank that has a rule that most people break without even knowing it, and it costs them $50,000 in a single mistake. Let me show you what happens. Chase has one rule that nobody tells you about. You break it and you deny before the application is reviewed. I've seen this cost operators $50,000 in a single mistake. Chase wants to be first. Any other inquiry in your report before the application goes in, automatic denial. It doesn't matter if your score is 750. It doesn't matter if you have 100K in Chase business account. If there's a recent inquiry from another lender, Chase sees you as credit seeking. We worked with a real estate investor last month, strong file, 200K in liquid capital. He applied to Amex first because he had been with Amex for years and he thought that that relationship would carry weight. He got the Amex approval, 25K limit, but then he applied to Chase 3 years later thinking he was building momentum, thinking he was gonna get a big approval. Chase denied him, not because of his score, not because of his business. Why? But because of that Amex inquiry that was seen on his report from 72 hours earlier. That denial, it added another inquiry. So now he has 2 inquiries and 1 denial on his file before round 1 even started properly. So Chase goes first before any other application tells you to report. It's not a preference, that's a rule. So break it and you're starting from a compromised position. So Chase goes first, but what comes after? There's a specific order that determines whether you get 50K or 500K from that same file. Let me break down the full sequence. So there's a specific order to this, right? Nationals first, then regionals, then local credit unions. You get the order wrong and then round 2 never happens. So a correct sequence starts with nationals. Chase, Bank of America, US Bank, Truist, Wells Fargo. These are the institutions that have the highest limits and the strictest algorithms. Then we go with regionals, still with business products, KeyBank, Citizens, M&T. Different criteria, different products, different thresholds. Then we go with local credit unions, so relationship based. These guys are willing to overlook things that the nationals and the bigger banks won't. And then between every round, the increase come off the report. That's what allows round 2 to start clean and then round 3 to compound on top of it. So if you go about it backwards, locals first, then nationals, you've already used up the relationship-based approvals before you approach institutions with real capital capacity. Now your report has increased from banks that nationals have never even heard of. That signals desperation, that signals risk, not credibility. The operators who access 300K, 500K, and 900K in funding aren't skipping this order. They're following it exactly step by step. Nationals, then regionals, then local credit unions. Inquiry removal between each round. That's the structure that produces multi-round capacity. Skip any part and you're leaving 6 figures on the table. So now let me show you what happens when someone doesn't know this sequence exists. This is the pattern that I see every single week, and it's the most expensive mistake that operators make without realizing it. I worked with a wholesaler who kept getting denied by the same bank, and he couldn't figure out why. He had a solid score, real business, consistent deposits, and the problem wasn't his file. He had been banking with Truist for years, and he thought that relationship would account for something, right? So he applied for a business line of credit, denied. He applied again in 6 months, denied. He applied for a credit card, denied. 4th time, denied once more. Every application added another inquiry to his report, and when the deal showed up, he didn't have the capital. So what happened? Those deals slipped. When we pulled this file, the issue was immediate. Truist pulled from that bureau that had his 1 late payment on there from 2 years ago. So every time he applied, the algorithm automatically flagged it before anyone reviewed his business operations or his deposit history. Other banks, they pulled from his clean bureau. He was getting approved at those banks with no problem. So when we corrected the sequence and matched his clean bureau to the right banks, same file, completely different result. So one bank saying no does not mean that all banks will say no. Different banks pull different bureaus. So if you're stuck in a denial loop, the problem is almost always the sequence. That operator, he was stuck because he didn't know the sequence. But here's another situation that I see just as often. Operators who have the capacity sitting on the table and they don't know exists. Let me show you what that looks like. An entrepreneur came to us with $500K in funding already, but one rule he had his entire career: never touch personal credit for business. That rule was leaving him 6 figures on the table every cycle. He thought that separating business and personal credit was the professional thing to do. What he didn't realize was that layering personal credit into the sequence correctly, it unlocks capacity that business credit alone can't reach. So when we layer personal credit product into his round 2 strategy, position correctly, time right, match institutions that reward mixed credit profiles, he added $400K in 60 days. That total stack went from $500K to $900K. Same business, same revenue, just a complete understanding of how to deploy both sides of the credit profile. Most operators leave capacity on the table because they don't know that this structure exists. Personal credit isn't the enemy, it's leverage when layered correctly. So hit that follow button and check the link in the description to join the Excellence community to see the complete bank sequencing system in real time.